Welcome, Seeker. I am the architect of meaning, and in this explainer, we're plunging straight into a profoundly dark yet absolutely fascinating myth, the alchemy of the Void King. We're going to map out a journey, your journey, to reclaim your sovereign power right out of the wreckage of a broken deity. It's the ultimate story of self-creation, and honestly, I am so thrilled to guide you through it.
So let's just get right into it. We actually start our theatrical journey at the very end of all things. I mean, think about it. What actually happens when the heavens finally break? The source text tells us that a terrifying yet kind of magnificent freedom emerges the second the idea of external salvation completely crumbles. It describes this old paradigm as a stagnant heavenly orbit that's basically decayed into the cold gray clay of a broken deity. When that external ladder of truth completely falls apart, what exactly are you left with?
Well, you're left with a choice, and it's perfectly captured in this quote right here. Instead of mourning the rattling of dry leaves that was once called divine guidance, he embraces the ripe fruit of immediate, chaotic reality. Think about that for a second. The era of the shepherd, it's over. We can't rely on someone else to guide us anymore. By flipping that traditional ladder of truth upside down, the seeker makes a really radical choice. Instead of crying over the past, they dive headfirst into the chaotic reality right in front of them. It's all about stepping up to navigate an infinite nothingness that you entirely create for yourself.
Which brings us to Act 1, Descent into the Nigredo.
Because look, to truly become an architect of meaning, you've got to plunge headfirst into absolute darkness. You literally can't build something new without totally clearing the foundation, right? And that means ripping off the golden masks of virtue and chivalry that used to hide the inherent selfishness of the soul. We have to strip away all that pretense to find what's actually real. This brings us to the Rubedo Stage. In alchemical terms, Rubedo is the blackening, the utter decay. Down here in this abyss, the self is completely hollowed out. This descent anchors your transformation not in pristine, sunny skies, but right in the putrefied remains of fallen hopes. You're no longer just some passive reflection of a dying sun. You are preparing to become something entirely sovereign.
And it's deep within this dark descent that we encounter the world tree of negation. It actually draws its bitter nutrients directly from this exact hollowing out of the self. The text describes a really intense process here. The individual looks through the mirrors of the hollow souls and undergoes total ego dissolution. By doing that, the seeker catches the albedo, the whitening light of the void. Now, I know, that sounds like a terrible vacation, but this light is absolutely crucial. It's what finally strips away the very last of our divine delusions, turning the self into a clear window overlooking the infinite abyss.
So notice how this vast chasm separates two completely different ways of existing. On one hand, you've got the constraints of traditional dogma, basically a passive observer, completely trapped by the memory of a divine structure that honestly doesn't hold weight anymore. But on the other side, the seeker's freedom. You're no longer a follower. Why? Because the death of divinity is the absolute prerequisite to achieving true self-sovereignty. You step out of the shadows and into the role of an active world creator, tasked with navigating an infinite nothingness.
And that naturally leads us into Act 2, Etching the Divine Joke.
This is the absolute core of our tragic myth, forged right in the violent collision of opposites. The seeker, now totally stripped of those golden masks, has to start actively sculpting their own despair into power. And there's this profound line: if there was no light above to guide them, he would invent a fire that consumed the very idea of a path. I mean, wow! It turns the passive follower into what the text actually calls the mad rune wizard. It is the ultimate act of self-sovereignty. If the path is gone, you don't just sit there in the dark. You become the fire. You pull the very threads of reality apart to forge your own way.
So let's trace that. We've moved from being a passive observer, right through that ego dissolution in the mirrors, all the way to realizing the divine joke. Acting as that mad rune wizard, the seeker literally starts etching sigils of entropy directly into the cooling flesh of the divine, and even into their own skin. Now, these runes don't offer grace, not at all. Instead, they make the void tangible, glowing, even. They are specifically designed to unravel reality until absolutely nothing but raw, creative power is left. And in this raw, newly created void, we reach this incredible twice-born harmony. It's where the singer and the suffering merge into one continuous existence. True enlightenment in this myth isn't found in some peaceful, serene meadow. No, it is found by actively recognizing the universe's grand, mocking absurdity. It's looking the divine joke right in the face and flat out refusing to be the punchline. deciding instead to be the one who actually writes it.
Now for the final act. Act 3. The Rubedo Transmutation.
We're stepping into the final alchemical laboratory here. Everything you've broken down, everything you've etched, is about to be transmuted into a shifting dream. This is the Rubedo Stage, the reddening, the ultimate transmutation. By completely murdering the memory of the divine, the seeker finally evolves into the overman. This figure claims a terrifying freedom and somehow manages to find the throne right in the middle of the wreckage of a broken heaven. You've made it. From the dark decay of Negredo, you are crowned the king of the void.
This whole wild process is what the source material calls the alchemy of insignificance, and it breaks down into 3 brutal but insanely liberating steps. First, you strip away all external meaning. Second, you define your existence entirely through your own will. And third, you stand boldly as a mad prophet. The king of the void doesn't suffer the chaos of existence like some helpless victim anymore. Instead, they stand directly at its very center, commanding the whole shebang.
As the architect of meaning, I can tell you for sure that the ultimate victory of this dark, mythic journey is self-sovereignty. You have literally forged a fire of your own making, built entirely from the ashes of dogmatic insignificance. Because you stripped away those golden masks, and because you actually survived that hollowing out in the Rubedo stage, you now possess the sovereign power to finally understand the punchline of the divine joke.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you, the seeker, with one final, kind of haunting choice about your own path through the abyss. Will you just keep wearing the golden masks of a broken heaven, clinging to the rattling, dry leaves of an old dogma? Or will you invent your own fire, step boldly into the Rubedo stage, and claim the terrifying, magnificent freedom of the void? The throne is sitting right there in the wreckage, just waiting for whoever has the will to claim it.